A wedding, a body buried in a backyard, and a gunshot nobody can explain. The Chi is closing the book on 8 seasons in one final hour. Season 8, Episode 10 is here, and if this trailer is telling the truth, not everyone walks away from this finale in one piece. There's something strange about watching a show end after 8 years. You start remembering where you were when it began, who you were rooting for back then, and how many of those people are even still around. That's the headspace a lot of long-time viewers are in right now, because the Chi is officially wrapping up, and Episode 10, titled The Last Dance, is the finish line. The official description keeps it simple on the surface. Emmy and Keisha are finally getting married, and they're not the only couple saying their version of "I do" before the credits roll for good. But anyone who's followed this show knows that a wedding on the Chi is never just a wedding. It's a pressure cooker. It's the one event guaranteed to pull every storyline, every grudge, and every unresolved conflict into the same room at the same time. So let's actually break down what we're working with here, because the finale trailer gives us a lot to chew on, and very little of it feels like an accident. Start with the obvious center of gravity, Emmy and Keisha's wedding. The trailer shows both of them prepping for the day, and there's a specific kind of tension in those shots. Not the "will they get married" kind, but the "what's going to go wrong before they get there" kind. That distinction matters. This show has spent 8 seasons teaching its audience not to trust a peaceful moment, and a wedding is basically the biggest peaceful moment you can put on screen. It's a target. Every character with unfinished business now has a built-in reason to show up, say something they shouldn't, or do something that can't be undone. Which brings us to Tiffany and Keisha. Their relationship has been quietly one of the more emotionally loaded threads heading into this finale, and the trailer suggests it isn't done unraveling. After everything that happened with Nuck's death, Keisha's reaction wasn't outrage on Tiffany's behalf, it was disbelief, almost defensiveness, like she couldn't process that the man who fathered her child was capable of what Tiffany accused him of. And that's worth sitting with for a second, because it's not really about whether Keisha believes Tiffany. It's about what it costs someone to accept that a person they loved, even briefly, was dangerous. Nuck wasn't a misunderstood character. He was violent, manipulative, and by every measure the show gave us, he earned whatever consequences came his way. But grief doesn't always follow logic, and Keisha's hesitation reflects that. If the finale gives these two a real conversation, not a shouting match, an actual conversation, it could be one of the more grounded emotional beats in the episode. The trailer hints at tears, at Tiffany trying to explain herself again, and honestly, she shouldn't have to keep justifying a decision that, in the end, protected people. Then there's the fallout from the last episode, and if you watched it, you know exactly what we're talking about. Victor confessing to a crime the police couldn't even prove happened, followed by Reg stepping in and taking the blame himself. That sequence left a lot of viewers frustrated, and for good reason. From a purely legal standpoint, none of it holds up. There was no body. There wasn't enough evidence to charge Tiffany or Victor with anything solid. Detective Tucson searched Tiffany's property and came up empty. And then, almost too conveniently, Victor cracks under pressure and confesses, and Reg follows it up by claiming he knows exactly where the body is, buried in Tiffany's own backyard. That's not just bad luck for Tiffany. That's a plot turn that raises real questions about whether this case would ever have survived a competent defense attorney, let alone a full trial. If this had gone to court instead of collapsing into confessions, there's a strong argument the whole case gets thrown out. But Reg didn't wait for that outcome. He made a choice, reportedly rooted in something his mother taught him, that family protects family, no matter the cost. Whether that loyalty was worth a murder charge is a different question entirely, and it's one the finale may or may not actually address. Now shift to the next generation, because the trailer makes a point of showing Devontae, Mondo, and Tevin riding bikes together, and if you've been watching since the beginning, that image lands differently than it might for a newer viewer. It's a direct echo of Kevin, Papa, and Jake back in Season 1. 3 young guys, riding through the neighborhood, still early enough in life that the streets haven't fully claimed them yet. Putting Devontae's crew in that same visual frame isn't a coincidence. It's the show acknowledging its own cycle, showing that even as this particular story ends, the pattern it built itself around doesn't. That's a heavier statement than it looks like on the surface, and it might end up being one of the most quietly meaningful choices in the whole finale. There's also real curiosity around who else might show up before the credits roll. Kevin has been a fixture since Episode 1, and a finale without him at least appearing for the wedding would feel like a missing piece. The same goes for Nina, Keisha's mother, who's been almost entirely absent this season. Neither appearance is confirmed by anything in the trailer, but for a show built on legacy characters, a series finale is exactly the kind of moment that calls old faces back one more time. There's a line in the trailer that feels like it's doing more work than a throwaway piece of narration usually does. Emmett, in voiceover, talks about how life comes down to choices, some that make things better, and some that come back to haunt you. On a show like this, that's not just a nice sentiment to close out a season. It's basically a thesis statement for the whole finale. Nobody on the Chi has ever gotten a clean ending just because the story was ending. If anything, this show has made a habit of proving that the past doesn't quietly disappear just because the cameras are about to stop rolling. So when a line like that shows up in the trailer, it's worth treating as a warning as much as a reflection. Someone's choices are about to catch up with them, and it's probably not going to be gentle. From there, the trailer moves through a handful of smaller moments that feel almost like emotional checkpoints scattered across the wedding day. Papa is shown kissing Kenya's hand, which on its own might read as a sweet, low-stakes gesture, but with these two, nothing has ever stayed simple for long. If this is the finale nudging them towards something more serious, it would actually track with where their relationship has been heading. Cautious, a little guarded, but clearly building towards something real. Then there's Darnell asking Emmett if he's ready, and Emmett's answer is about as steady as you'd expect. He says he's been ready. It's a small exchange, but it carries weight, because Emmett's journey on this show has never been a straight line. Getting to a place where he can say that without hesitation says something about how far he's come. Of course, ready doesn't guarantee smooth. This is still the Chi, and weddings on this show have a track record of going sideways fast. Whether that means an argument, an unwelcome guest, or something far more serious, the trailer doesn't say outright, but it doesn't need to. The tension is baked into the setting itself. Jake's storyline gets a brief but telling beat too. He's shown with a visibly uneasy expression, and given where things left off with Desiree, that's not exactly reassuring. Their relationship has been one of the more understated threads this season, quietly testing whether two people who've both been through a lot can actually build something stable together. A worried look in a wedding trailer usually isn't there by accident, and it raises the question of whether this final episode gives them the resolution their arc has been circling, or leaves it frustratingly open. Then there's Bari, and his storyline might carry some of the highest stakes of the entire finale, precisely because it's the quietest one. He's shown in what looks like a warm moment with Len. She's smiling, he's fixing something at his collar or reaching into his jacket, and the ambiguity there is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It could be nothing more than adjusting his suit. It could be something more deliberate, like a promise ring, though anyone who's followed Bari's arc knows marriage feels like a stretch for where his character currently sits. What makes this moment tense isn't the guesswork about the ring, though. It's the bigger picture hanging over Bari all season. He's been planning to leave for Atlanta, trying to get out before the streets catch up with him, and the longer he lingers, the more that plan starts to feel like a countdown. Characters who delay their exit on this kind of show don't have a great track record. The tension isn't really about whether Bari wants to leave. It's about whether he'll actually get the chance to. Victor's portion of the trailer tells a very different story, one of consequence, not celebration. He's shown looking genuinely furious, and given everything that happened with Reg taking the fall for him, that anger tracks. But there's an argument to be made that Victor doesn't get to be the aggrieved party here. He's the one who confessed to something the police didn't even have solid evidence to charge him with. He put himself, and by extension his brother, directly in the line of fire, and now he has to live with the fact that someone else is paying for it. Add in the tension simmering around his connection to Fatima, and Victor looks like a character who hasn't learned the lesson his own storyline keeps trying to teach him, that impulsive decisions in this world rarely stay contained to just him. Rashad's trailer moment adds another layer of unresolved tension. He's shown with a hard, angry expression, and recent episodes have made clear why. He's been quietly watching Victor and Emmett, holding on to unfinished business tied to Alicia, and there's a real possibility he's still looking for Roscoe if the opportunity presents itself. The bigger problem is that Roscoe hasn't been seen all season, which leaves a genuine question mark heading into the finale. Does she resurface for one last confrontation, or does that thread simply stay unresolved? With only one episode left, there's no room for a slow build. Whatever happens with Rashad and Roscoe, it has to happen fast, and the stakes for Rashad specifically are personal. Another mistake, another act of retaliation, and he risks losing everything he's rebuilt since his time behind bars. Taken together, these smaller trailer beats start to paint a clearer picture of what this finale is actually built around. It's not one single climax. It's a series of quieter reckonings happening in the same 24 hours, all converging on a wedding that was probably never going to stay peaceful in the first place. Now for the moment, the trailer seems almost designed to make you replay over and over, because right near the end, everything shifts. Keisha's voice comes in, saying that every step has led to this moment, and it sounds less like a wedding toast and more like a warning. Right after that line, the trailer cuts to what sounds unmistakably like screaming, followed by something that could very easily be a gunshot. And that's where the entire tone of the episode flips. 1 second you're watching a couple getting ready to say their vows, and the next, the trailer is hinting that this wedding might not end the way anyone hoped. Here's the thing about trailers on this show, though, they've never played fair. The Chi has a long history of cutting footage together in a way that makes viewers assume the worst, only for the actual episode to land somewhere completely different. So while that gunshot sound is impossible to ignore, it's worth holding on to some healthy skepticism about what it actually means. Is someone shot? Is this even connected to the wedding at all, or is it a separate moment happening elsewhere in the episode, spliced in for maximum tension? The trailer doesn't clarify, and that ambiguity is clearly intentional. What makes it even harder to read is the emotional whiplash packed into the final seconds. Keisha is shown crying, but the trailer gives no clean indication of when that moment happens or what triggers it. Is it grief over what unfolds at the wedding? Is it the aftermath of her conversation with Tiffany finally hitting her? Or is it something between her and Emmett that hasn't even been hinted at yet? Any of those would fit the emotional buildup we've already seen this season, which makes it genuinely difficult to guess which one we're actually looking at. Then there's Emmett, shown holding his son Devontae in what looks like a deeply emotional embrace. Whether that's a moment of joy, a father savoring his son on one of the biggest days of his life, or something heavier tied to loss, the trailer doesn't say. Given how loaded this final episode already is, it wouldn't be surprising if that hug is doing double duty, representing both pride and an unspoken goodbye. And then there's Reg. He's shown crying, and given where his storyline currently sits, that reaction makes total sense. He took the blame for a murder charge that, under any real legal scrutiny, might never have held up in the first place. There was no body until he said there was one. There wasn't enough evidence until he handed it over. He sacrificed his own future, reportedly out of loyalty to his brother and a promise made to protect family no matter the cost, and now he's staring down the reality of what that choice actually means. A murder charge doesn't get undone by good intentions. If the finale shows him processing that weight, it could end up being one of the most quietly devastating scenes in the entire episode, precisely because it's not loud or dramatic. It's just the sound of someone realizing what they've given up. There's also the lingering question of Rafi, who was noticeably absent from episode 9 after being a consistent presence for most of the season. With only one episode left, the show is running out of room to bring him back in a meaningful way, but that doesn't mean it won't try. If Rafi does resurface, Bari is the obvious target, especially given how much time Bari has spent talking about leaving for Atlanta without actually doing it. There's a certain irony in a character surviving this long by staying sharp and cautious, only to let his guard down at the exact moment he should be walking out the door. Whether Rafi shows up or not, that tension around Bari's exit, or lack of one, feels like one of the more underappreciated threads heading into this finale. When you step back and look at everything the trailer is showing us, a pattern starts to emerge. This isn't shaping up to be a finale built around one big twist. It's shaping up to be a finale about consequences, the kind that come from choices made episodes, even seasons ago, finally arriving all at once, on a day that was supposed to be about celebration. Weddings have a way of forcing people into the same room whether they want to be there or not, and on the Chi, that's rarely a peaceful thing. 8 seasons is a long time to spend with characters like these. Watching them navigate love, loss, loyalty, and the weight of the streets has never been easy viewing, but it's been honest, and that honesty is probably why this show mattered to so many people in the first place. Whatever happens in this final hour, one thing feels certain: nobody walks away from The Last Dance completely unchanged, and some may not walk away at all. If you're just as invested in how this all wraps up, drop your predictions in the comments below. Who do you think that gunshot is really about, and does Reg deserve a way out of this? Hit like if you're ready for this finale, subscribe if you want to be here for the breakdown right after it airs, and let's talk it all out together once the truth finally comes out.